Recently, I went to Kennywood and got on every operating roller coaster. When I was there, I rode Skyrocket 3 times, once in the front and twice in the back, so I think I have a pretty good understanding of this ride. Today, I'm going to be reviewing one of Kennywood's most popular rides, Skyrocket. When walking up to Kennywood, Skyrocket and Steel Curtain are the most eye-catching coasters. So obviously, I was excited to get on this ride. And I knew what I was getting into. I had watched reviews before, so I knew that the first half was good and the second half was not. You start off by going under the Skyrocket sign, leading into the queue right underneath the coaster, which is good for taking videos. Every time I've gone on this ride, I've waited less than 15 minutes. So not bad for a roller coaster this size. If you put this ride in Cedar Point, it'd get like a 3-hour line. Kennywood takes pride in this coaster, and the crew did a really good job dispatching, unlike Phantom's Revenge, which was running one train. Something interesting about this ride is that I'm pretty sure it's the only coaster that has air gates, which I find it cool that Kennywood doesn't really have any air gates. This, just like all the other attractions, have bins to put your items in. I'm glad Kennywood decided to put bins everywhere versus lockers like the Six Flags Entertainment Company. Once you board the train, you will pull down on a restraint, which is kind of similar to Steel Engine restraints. Except you don't have a seatbelt on Skyrocket, which helps the operations and makes everything less complicated. Make sure to extend your legs a little bit to make sure the restraint doesn't come down and staple you. I got stapled on my last ride and it hurt really bad and my shins were red. Once you're all clear, you'll turn left slightly downhill before going into the launch. This launches you from around 5 miles an hour to 50 in 3 seconds. This is not my favorite launch, nor the punchiest launch, but it was still surprising. And it was surprising all 3 times I rode it. After you launch, you go nearly vertical into a top hat 95 feet in the sky. At this point, I was still in shock from the launch that I didn't even comprehend we were at the top. Once you're at the top, there are trim brakes, which I hate and are a total buzzkill. When I was in the front, it felt like I was halfway down the drop and we were still going slow. Even in the back, we got some airtime, but it could have been so much better. And that's what annoys me about it. After, you go down into a near vertical drop, straight into an overbank. This just felt like Millennium Force scaled down. The overbank wasn't anything special, it was kind of just like a filler element. Right after this, you go into a 0G rule, which is one of the best elements of the ride. No matter where you are, you still get flung around and it's pretty snappy too. Right after this, you transition into the mid-course. This and the top hat are the 2 reasons you should be sitting in the back. In the back, you get flung out of your seat. In the front, not so much, but it's still alright. Right after this, you go down into a low turnaround, which for me was pretty forgettable. This leads into a corkscrew, which was pretty good, except it's over really fast. I feel like this is more of a 0G rule, because if you look at how it's shaped, it doesn't turn as much as a normal corkscrew. This one is more vertical, which is fine, you just don't feel the element that much. Unfortunately, this is where the ride ends. Not really, but at this point it may as well be over. All you do is some slow S-bends, and then you go over hills that don't give you any airtime before going into the brakes. I've heard the reason it's so slow is because they were going to put the turnpike attraction underneath Skyrocket. That's why the ending is so high up in the air and not faster. Now let's go over the goods and the bads. The goods are, it has a punchy launch, it has a nice top hat, great airtime on the mid-course, it has some snappy inversions, it has no seatbelts, and it's buttery smooth. The bads are, it has trims on the top hat, it's not that tall, it has bad restraints if you're stapled, it has a bad ending, and it's a pretty short ride. Overall, this is a good ride, but don't come in with high expectations. If you look at it as a family coaster, then it's great. But if you look at it as a high-intense thrill ride, then this sucks. I did both. When I first rode it, I had high expectations, then I was let down. So when I rode it again, I had really low expectations, so then it was good. This was my brother's first thrill ride, and prior to that day, his biggest coaster was the mine ride at Cedar Point. I feel like this is many other kids' first thrill ride, and that's good. It's a good ride to get started with. Overall, Skyrocket was a fun coaster that I will be riding next time I'm at Kennywood. Even though there are other coasters that overshadow this ride, make sure not to skip this. After going to Kings Island, I feel like a good way to look at it would be thinking of this as a big boy backlot stunt coaster. Maybe that's just me. I know it's a weird analogy, but whatever. For Skyrocket's final score, I give it an 8 out of 10. Overall, a fun ride. That's gonna do it for this video. Make sure to watch for more Kennywood reviews and Kings Island, Universal, and Cedar Point reviews. Thanks.